All right, everybody, what's going on? Thank you all so much for tuning into this week's segment of Mikasa's Sukasa's 2-hour Monday night show. We are live on YouTube. Make sure, first of all, of course, as always, want to give a special shout out to our Patreon donors. You are what making the world go round at Mikasa's Sukasa. We couldn't do this without you. Thank you all so much. Also, make sure that you subscribe to us on Roku TV. The link will be in the description below. Also, if you want to have your comment read during tonight's show, and it'll be on Roku TV. So make sure that you're coming with the heat. You can drop a super chat, and we will read your comment out loud, and I will answer your question mid-show, mid-sentence, no matter what the thought is. As long as it isn't anything obscene, of course, within reason. And I'll go ahead and read that off for you. So, first of all, what's up, everybody? It's been a crazy weekend. It's been a crazy week. Trump is being Trump. Hillary is... You think she has Alzheimer's? I think that clearly, given that she won't, leave the political field, it makes it difficult for me to believe she hasn't forgotten what the hell the results of her running were last time and the time before that. It wasn't even close either of the times, and yet she won't disappear. So we're going to discuss that a little bit. We're going to discuss Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a few things about Debbie Wasserman Schultz. We're also going to discuss the GOP and their love affair with screwing over the little guy while trying to claim it's about reducing big government. And we're also going to discuss some of the new revelations within the Catholic Church dealing with the recent child sex trafficking revelations that have come out, amongst some other things. So first, I want to start off by saying I wish that Debbie Wasserman Schultz would find a cliff and walk off of it. And why do I say that? Well, for those of you who don't know, maybe some of you are just now tuning in, to the political realm, especially given that elections are coming up. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is the woman who was in charge of the Democratic National Committee when they decided to screw over not only Bernie Sanders, but the supporters that donated to his campaign, volunteered for his campaign, put in their own time, their own money, their own effort, blood, sweat, and tears to seeing Bernie Sanders be elected to office. How did she do this? Well, she did it with several ways. She's colluded, her and the Hillary campaign colluded with super PACs and the media to suppress Bernie Sanders, to elevate Hillary Clinton. They also colluded with Google to even suppress negative results about Hillary Clinton while trying to pretend that Bernie Sanders was either irrelevant, or they would always bring up things that were negatively correlated with quote-unquote socialism, despite the fact that Bernie Sanders addressed this over and over again, that he was a Democratic socialist, right? So she also limited the debates with when Obama and Hillary Clinton debated. They debated 26 times. 26 times. Guess how many times Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton debated? Go ahead, take a guess. 6. It was 6. Won't even fill up both my hands. It was only 6 times. So how are we going to be able to get the gist of both candidates if they have only debated 6 times? How can we have really substantive policy debates with only 6? Well, I'll tell you how. Bernie Sanders was the only one actually able to fit all of his policy stances and all of the policies that he advocates for within those 2 debates, or 6 debates. And he was the highest tallied Google subject in the country during those debates. And so they even went on further, because the idea came up, of course, that, well, maybe you should hold town halls outside of outside of the DNC. Maybe you should schedule your own debates if networks will open them. And guess what? That's what Debbie Wasserman Schultz decided to do. Debbie Wasserman Schultz decided, you know what? If you have a debate that isn't sanctioned by the DNC, we will ban you from all further debates in the coming months during the presidential primary in 2016. Now, granted, It wouldn't have like he would have been banned from many debates, considering once again there were only 6. Not exactly sure, what he would have been missing out on, but also just the overall lies that Debbie Wasserman Schultz personally told in the media. She was pretending as if she was unbiased the entire time. And one time, she actually got caught saying that superdelegates were around to make sure that the elites don't have to run against activists. Those are her words, not mine. She literally said they don't want to have to compete against activists. Now, this is just a short list of the things that Debbie Wasserman Schultz have done. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the things that Debbie Wasserman Schultz has done locally here in Florida in District 23. Gabriel Akari, thank you so much. Oh, I appreciate that. Keep on speaking truth. Cheers from Sweden. Oh, man. What time is it in Sweden right now? Man, I appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. What a super chat. Like I said, people, make sure that if you want to comment read out loud on YouTube and on Roku, make sure you drop a super chat. And we'll go ahead and do and address that whenever your super chats drop. So I appreciate that. So locally, it gets worse. You think that the limitations of her corruption would be limited to the DNC, and then when she was off the DNC, it would kind of be nipped in the bud. But that's not the case. Nope. Actually, it got progressively worse. No pun intended. Haha. See what I did right there? Worse for progressives. Progressively worse. Don't be stealing my jokes, people. Hey, guess what? I want to tell y'all a joke really quick before I continue. What is the problem with getting marble counters in your household? They're always taken for granted. Don't take my jokes. I'm not a dad yet, but I got dad jokes on deck. Anyway, so she ran against Tim Canova, and Tim Canova, with the combination of how just really progressive and how genuine Tim Canova is as a person and as a candidate, with the combination of Debbie Wasserman Schultz as being just revolting. She's everything wrong with both parties, with the Democratic Party specifically, but with both parties. Tim Canova broke a lot of records. Tim Canova broke fundraising records. He was getting Democratic Party members registered at a ridiculously high rate considering the time. Personally, I've met dozens and dozens and dozens of people going to meet and greets working in that district when I first moved to Florida, where they were like, they voted for Tim Canova. There was no way in hell. Some people voted for Tim Canova not knowing who he was just because they refused to have Debbie Wasserman Schultz in office still. There was a congressional candidate who used to be, she was doing what she was told to by the party, not really questioning it because she thought that Debbie Wasserman Schultz was a good candidate, because these politicians get so caught up in their own world. They don't know what's going on in the outside world of politics. So she's phone banking for the list of candidates she was given to phone bank for. And every single time that she was asked, or that she asked a person, well, are you going to be voting for Debbie Wasserman Schultz? They would hang up. They would cuss her out. It got ugly fast, and that kind of forced her to reevaluate why she was working for them or for her. That's how bad Debbie Wasserman Schultz was. Tim Canova's field numbers came back, and it looked as if he won, because field numbers are usually a pretty accurate representation of how you're doing, especially when you were averaging about, I want to say, 1,200 to 1,500 doors being knocked on in a single week. Tim Canova was a man on a mission, and everybody in the country was cheering for him. And so when the election finally happened, he barely lost. But everybody felt that there was something going on. There was something wrong with this. Guess what that was? We were like, I don't know about this, because the field numbers are saying one thing, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is saying another. And mind you, this is a U.S. congressional district, so there's not that many doors that you can knock on, right? Think about that. There are not that many people you can talk to. Not like when you're averaging 1,200 doors a week, and then having enough time to go back and retouch those people to make sure that you're securing your vote, or securing their vote. It's kind of hard to get those numbers wrong. So Tim Canova did what any other politician should be doing, which is challenging the results of what seemed to be a corrupt election. Too bad we don't see enough of that going on nowadays. But Tim Canova, being the patriotic, American, democratic, democracy-driven individual that he is, did not want our votes and our voices to go to waste. And guess what he found out? Well, he took it to court. He won the lawsuit against the Democratic Party. They were forced to present the ballot so that they could be recounted and verified. And guess what that party did? Brenda Snipes, who was in charge of these ballots, destroyed them. But did she destroy them? Maybe she didn't think that they were going to be used in a court case. Nah, that wasn't the case. Brenda Snipes knew they were going to be used in a court case because she was being subpoenaed for the ballots. After she was subpoenaed, those ballots were destroyed. Guess where she showed up today? Or no, excuse me. I believe it was today. It was today. Guess where she showed up? At a rally for Debbie Wasserman Schultz. As you saw in the thumbnail. Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Oh. The audacity. This is how corrupt and how complicit in corruption our system has become. What kind of democracy do we have when Brenda Snipes feels so emboldened by the establishment surrounding her and propping her up, that Debbie Wasserman Schultz feels so protected by the corrupt establishment propping her up, that these two, after losing a federal case, after having ballots destroyed, would show up together, take a picture together with a big ass smile on their face. Like, we know we did it. You know we did it. And guess what? You can't do a damn thing about it. What kind of democracy do we live in where this is seeming to be the norm? And this isn't just on this isn't just the Democratic Party. I was just talking about this earlier. Remember during the GOP primary, whenever Ted Cruz and Trump were pretty much the last men standing, and they were attacking each other, just ripping each other apart. But even more so, the Trumpers, the MAGA people, were saying that Ted Cruz is a deep state puppet, because he is. Ted Cruz is a deep state puppet. He is a Koch brothers puppet. And the moment that Trump endorses Ted Cruz, all of a sudden they all love Ted Cruz. They all love Rafael. By the way, that's Ted Cruz's real name. They all love him now. Ted Cruz is a deep state puppet. Trump is endorsing deep state puppets now, instead of fighting them like they all thought he would. And the Republicans are okay with it, just like the Democrats seemingly are, for the most part, okay with what Debbie Wasserman Schultz does. Now, her delegation hates her. She got booed at her own, speaking to her own delegation in the Democratic National Convention. But my point is, it's crazy to me that this is accepted. And how do I know it's accepted? Because I'm reading over and over and over and over again. The GOP they make an attack on democracy. I'm gonna give you the exact what was the exact wording. Republicans are rigging elections to win. This is according to USA Today. They are anti-voter and anti-democracy. Does anybody see anything at all ironic about that? Some of you might not. That's okay. Let me go ahead and give you a little breakdown. before a lot of people were paying attention, this is one of the events that made a lot of people pay attention. Before a lot of people were paying attention to the 2016 primary, there was this little event in Arizona where not a couple of 100,000, not a few 100,000, but literally millions of voters had their registration switched. And almost exclusively, these voters were all going to vote for Bernie Sanders. Guess how much national attention that got? I think outside of US Uncut and a couple of independent websites, nobody covered it. But only the Republicans, supposedly, are rigging elections to win and are anti-democracy. I recall an event in Colorado where just in the last couple of years, a progressive candidate was told to step down so that the establishment candidate could win, and he got it all on record, that they're pretty much, if he doesn't step down, they're going to rig it so that he can't win anyway. But only the Republicans are rigging elections to win, and only the Republicans are anti-democracy. I personally stood in front of the New York Board of Elections in Manhattan and listened to them lie to us straight to our face, saying that they had no idea how those 200,000 plus voters were purged in Brooklyn. Ironically enough, Bernie Sanders' place of birth, where he would have absolutely won. 200,000 voters purged from Brooklyn. And they lied to us straight to our face, telling us they had no idea what was going on. And then they admit later that they were the ones responsible. But hey, only the GOP is anti-voter and anti-democracy. Only the GOP. That's when USA Today decides to cover it. That's when MSNBC and CNN decide to cover it. But don't get it twisted. Fox News is just as bad. Because they were all over election fraud during the Democratic primary. They were all over it. But they won't cover what's going on in Georgia right now. They're too busy covering the migrant caravan. In other words, the political refugees that are fleeing their countries because the United States destroyed them. I witnessed the New York Board of Elections be more offended by people using profanity. They were more upset by profanity than they were about the fact that there were people in there, I mean, absolutely pissed the fuck off. They're like, maybe you made a mistake. Are you sure you registered? I've been registered at the same address for 25 years. I voted in every single election. I've never had a problem up to this point. But are you sure? Are you sure? As condescending as can be. Now, I will say this. I know the chairwoman lost her practice because of the backlash that came about from our video. So that was nice. I remember in Iowa, when Bernie Sanders somehow, some way, in the very first primary race, ended up inching out a victory against Hillary Clinton. The whole world was watching. And guess what also happened? The whole world watched as randomly, for the first time in the history of elections, superdelegates were counted in the very first primary race. And it looked as if Hillary Clinton had won based off of the percentage of delegates that were applied after Bernie Sanders had actually won the state of Iowa. I remember in Kentucky where we saw the exit polling being, good God, 5 points difference, sometimes 7 to 8%. And instead of addressing the exit polling the exit polling differentiation, instead of saying, hold on, we should cancel this election and figure out what the hell's going on, guess what they did instead? The Democrats, guess what they did? They got rid of all exit polling. But only the GOP are rigging elections to win and are anti-voter and anti-democracy. Only GOP. Ballots were thrown away in California. The Nevada primary was rigged. Nina Turner wasn't allowed to nominate Bernie Sanders at the Democratic National Convention. Where was all of the mainstream media outrage when our democracy was being taken from us right from underneath our nose? Oh, but let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, at the dismissal hearing for the DNC fraud lawsuit, the attorneys looked at that judge. They looked at Jared H. Beck, Elizabeth Lee Beck, Colin O'Brien, everybody in that crowd, and said if the DNC wanted to select their candidate in a back room with cigars, they would be able to do that, and they would be perfectly fine with it. That they would not be doing anything wrong or illegal. Even if they told us that they were behaving unbiasedly. Even if they told us, even if they violated federal and local election laws. But only the GOP. That's what they'd have the American people believe, is that the GOP is the only party that rigs elections. Yeah. The GOP rigged elections. They just purged 500,000 voters. And guess what? The truth of the matter is, I have not seen enough outrage from the Republicans who are screaming Demorats, talking about how evil the Democratic Party is. But you won't even call out your own party. So if you're coming to jump into this thread talking about how much you hate the Democrats because of everything they did in 2016, but you're perfectly okay with the Republicans rigging elections for their own benefit, then I don't want to hear about walk away. Because you're only walking away into the GOP, who is also rigging elections. There are only a few candidates, only a few media outlets who are addressing the systemic issue, that the primary issue really that we are dealing with all over the nation, local elections, state elections, national elections. If we do not address election fraud, what's the point of having elections? Y'all know I'm a big Bernie Sanders fan. I love Bernie Sanders. I think he makes mistakes. He gets on my damn nerves sometimes recently. More specifically recently, I should say. And he did it again. And I'm actually scared to bring this up because I know the Lord Jesus, y'all about to go crazy in my comment section. But on Twitter, Bernie Sanders had the nerve to call out the GOP and their rigging of elections. And I'm not going to lie, I was a little pissed. A little bit. Because not even, 3 months ago, California had how many voters purged from the voter rolls, people? Not even 2 months ago, New York had how many people purged from the voter rolls? And if I recall, did Bernie Sanders at all speak out in a substantive way, in a meaningful way, about the lack of democracy in the Democratic Party in regards to just those instances? I get the family explained to me why they couldn't speak out against it while he was running in the Democratic primary. I get it. The Democratic Party would have painted them out to be sore losers. They would have said that they were making excuses, etc. I get that, but you're not running right now. Those were your Bernie-crats that got cheated. Those were our revolution candidates that got cheated. And yet you can scream as if the Democrat or the Republican Party is the only ones that rig elections. Which is not the case. Until we substantively address election fraud and election integrity, or lack thereof, I don't want to hear the argument, well, who are you voting for? These are our only options. Why are they our only options, genius? Because we don't have ranked choice voting, because you're so distracted by hero worshiping people who are eventually going to let you down because of the system that they exist in, that you haven't thought, maybe I should stop advocating for people and start advocating for ballot initiatives and policies and referendums. Maybe instead of saying my only choice is Andrew Gillum, you should start asking yourself, why is my only choice Andrew Gillum? Why do I feel like it is only Andrew Gillum or Mike DeSantis? Why do I feel like it's only Andrew Cuomo and the other guy? I don't even know the other guy. I don't know Andrew Cuomo's running against because Andrew Cuomo's going to win. Why is it only Gavin Newsom and John Cox? Gavin Newsom is straight out of 50 Shades of Grey. Why are you not asking that question? Because it's easier, right? It's easier to say Andrew Gillum versus Mike DeSantis instead of saying, well, how do I fix my democracy? And starting from there. Because as of right now, we don't have one. And that woman who is standing, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is standing beside Brenda Snipes in that thumbnail that you just saw, she's smiling because she knows that some of you are going to vote for Andrew Gillum. Some of you are going to vote for Mike DeSantis. Some of you are going to vote for Andrew Cuomo. Some of you are going to vote for Gavin Newsom. Some of you are going to vote for Johnny Cox. And guess what? Either way, you already lost. The moment that you waited until right now to start fighting to get out the vote, you already lost. You were 2 steps behind. You know what they tell you when you're life planning? They say by the time 2019, the year 2019 is coming up, it is already too late to plan for 2020, like just in your general life goals. It is already too late. You should have been planning for 2020 the moment 2018 started. That is how politics works, except for at times, you had to start even 2 years before that. Hell, Hillary Clinton started 7 years before her run for office. That's the one thing I found out while I was investigating them, is that she had been planned on. As soon as once she was put in the Secretary of State, that was her campaign starting. And Brenda Snipes, who destroyed Tim Canova's ballots after a federal fucking subpoena, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who ordered her to do so, are taking that picture together and smiling in your face because they know that you're so busy cheering on the Andrew Gillums. You're so busy cheering on the Mike DeSantises that you won't address the systemic issues that are preventing your voice from being heard almost in every single election across this country. Facts. If you don't like them, go do something about it. But you think she's smiling because she isn't winning? Debbie Wasserman Schultz doesn't have to win an election to win. Let me tell you how bad this is. This is how bad this is. Elijah Manley, former presidential candidate for the Green Party, former candidate for school board at large, who had his life threatened, who was robbed, who was harassed and bullied by Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the local Democrats here in Florida, who also happens to be an alumni of Stoneman Douglas High School, also known as the place where the Parkland Massacre happened here in South Florida. Elijah Manley called out Debbie Wasserman Schultz because March for Our Lives, which was a group created by the students from Parkland, but ironically enough was astroturfed by Levine and Debbie Wasserman Schultz for their benefits, for their own political agenda, which is, remember how all the gun talk was a big deal and then they just stopped caring? Remember how that happened? It happened. It did. I was here the whole time. They astroturfed it, pretend like they gave a shit. And guess what happened whenever Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Tim Canova were invited to a town hall for March for Our Lives? Tim Canova showed up. Debbie Wasserman Schultz did. I don't think that's a surprise. But to add insult to injury, Elijah Manley, an alum of this school, not even 2 years removed. I don't think he's I think he's a year and a half removed from Stoneman Douglas High School. Whenever Elijah Manley calls her out on Twitter, she blocked him. You astroturf this event, use the death of children from this school for your own political agenda. You can speak at their rallies. You can speak at their marches. You can speak at their events. Oh, but not in election season. In election season, Debbie Wasserman Schultz takes money from gun manufacturers and she's scared of Tim Canova, so therefore she can't go. And when an alum of Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland calls you out and challenges you for this, you don't address it. You block him. What kind of society do we live in where you can avoid speaking at an event from an organization that you helped to create and still win an election? A world where the election is rigged, right? A world where the election is rigged. Really quick, make sure that you share this before we move on to our next topic. Share this, like it if you have not liked it yet, and if you want to have your comments read on Roku or on and here, make sure you drop a super chat. We can go ahead and get you squared away, and let's go ahead and move on to the other sad news. Yo. Why is Hillary Clinton showing her face again? Why? Today, the Hill reported she gave an interview. I watched the interview. It was horrific. Every time Hillary Clinton talks, it sounds like nails on a chalkboard. But like, I can't even. Does anybody else get that feeling when she talks? Like whenever Hillary Clinton talks, it's like, ugh. Because you can feel the disingenuousness coming from her. Like it's like her aura is disingenuous. The moment she goes, I'm like, this is about to be a lie. This is about to be a lie. I don't know what she's going to say, but it's going to be a lie. And so what they ask her to say, Hillary Clinton, are you going to run for office? Are you planning on running for office? Do you want to? She said, no, I don't want to. And they kind of accepted it. And she was like, but I want to be president, though. And then she starts listing off her qualifications on why she would be a good president. Now, there are a lot of people who have they form this habit of responding to critiques of Hillary Clinton with, move on. 2016 is in the past. Hillary Clinton isn't the president right now. It's Donald Trump. We only have to worry about Donald Trump. Okay. I will give you that. We do have to worry about Donald Trump. And Hillary Clinton isn't president right now. But and I always said, trust me when I say, if you want Donald Trump to be out of office, then you better listen to these critiques of Hillary Clinton and you better listen to them well. Because if I know Hillary Clinton, and I do, Hillary Clinton is staying in the spotlight because she plans on running again. She has nothing to lose. What could she possibly lose? In fact, she has a higher chance in her mind of winning the primary again now than she did when it was just Bernie Sanders. Let me explain why. What has the mainstream media been doing over the last 2 years or so, maybe almost 3 now? Kamala Harris is a next Democratic superstar. Joe Biden is a frontrunner for the Democratic Party. Cory Booker has a chance to slide into the Democratic Party. Is Kirsten Gillibrand the next Hillary Clinton? Over and over and over and over and over again, we see them try to anoint a new Democratic Party superstar. Now, there are 2 mechanisms to how this works. There are 2 benefits for the Democratic Party specifically. If you oversaturate the primary, it could be problematic if they were all actually trying to win, which isn't the case. That isn't what's happening. They're trying to gather up delegates. Now, there was a little thing that happened last election that a lot of people didn't notice. Martin O'Malley made a deal with Hillary Clinton despite he said that he wasn't going to do that, but he ended up making a deal and doing it anyway. He made a deal with Hillary Clinton that at the Democratic National Convention that Hillary Clinton would get all of his delegates. And in a vacuum, that seemed like not that important of a thing at the time. We're like, whatever, Hillary Clinton cheated at the time. Or Hillary Clinton cheated, so it doesn't matter. Now, what happens when Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Kirsten Gillibrand, all opponents who have no intention on dropping out of that race early, and this is and Joe Biden also, they have no intention of dropping out of that race early. They will stay. They will stay in that race until the Democratic National Convention. And they will take all those delegates. And they will pass those delegates right to Hillary Clinton and hand us another Donald Trump presidency. Oh, but it could get worse. See, there's a good chance that Donald Trump will be primary. We just have to look at the history of the GOP. People forget that even though George Bush was in the middle of a war and wartime presidents never get unseated, the GOP still primaried George Bush. There's a couple of reasons for that, but the primary reason because they thought he was unpopular, but more so, they wanted to make sure that they could transition into another 8 years of a GOP-dominated executive office and House. They primaried George Bush. That was a Bush they primaried. Now, if Hillary Clinton runs for office, do you think that they'll primary Donald Trump? Because at this point, I guarantee that they are. If she runs, the GOP secret weapon is who? The guy who was literally running all over the nation, endorsing candidates, and those candidates are in turn destroying their opponents. Donald Trump is literally, he's a crimson tide running through the country. The Natural Progressive, thanks for the super chat. Extra ballots sent out in Mitt Romney's district. I did not get one, but my Republican registered husband did, and she is an independent. Wow. Well, that sounds about right, unfortunately. It sounds about right. It's unfortunate how people have not seen like the error of their ways and like the cyclical effect that we have. The moment that Hillary Clinton announced, like now granted, I will admit that there are way more people than I would expect. Like even former Hillary Clinton people that I know, they're like, nah, like I like her and I want the establishment to win, but she can't get it done. And if you want to see another 4 years of Donald Trump, then please run Hillary Clinton. Whatever, fuck it. I've already given. No, I'm not kidding. I'm just. I focus a lot on local initiatives and things like that, helping out people like Tim Canova, helping local candidates get elected, helping the Green Party get propped up, and helping progressive Democrats do their thing, and helping independents do their thing. But I'll be damned, I'm not voting for Hillary Clinton, and I doubt that any of the 107 people that are watching right now are voting for her either. If you run Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump will not be primaried. And at that point, they will have the largest mandate in the country again. And it gets better. You think that the House and the Senate are dominated now by the GOP? Just wait. Run Hillary Clinton and see how it works. If you want to see the entire country turn around, here's how you do it. You tell Clinton to get the fuck out of the race, to shut her mouth, and never come back to politics again. You have Bernie Sanders run. You have Tulsi Gabbard run. And you actually even need a Nina Turner run or whoever else is progressive. Because, like I said, they're going to try and siphon off delegates. That's what they plan on doing. And this realization, it seems to be even more so. Like I was kind of like, man, I really hope that's not it. I don't know if they're that smart. I don't know if they're thinking ahead, but I think that they are. And that's why Hillary Clinton is feeling more emboldened, because she knows who every single one of those establishment shills will transfer their votes to whenever she gets in office. Or whenever she goes to the Democratic National Convention, I should say. We have been telling you this, people. We have been telling you it is not over. She is going to run. She is not going anywhere because she needs to run. She needs to win. The Clinton Foundation is useless without Hillary Clinton in power. That's why she stopped the Clinton Global Initiative the moment she didn't win the presidency. Isn't that weird? She was supposed to, the Clinton Global Initiative, the Clinton Foundation was supposed to end like 10 years ago. Actually, I lied. Like 12 years ago. Obama gave the order for it to end. Didn't happen. Even went throughout her entire administration, or her entire time in the Obama administration, where she was taking a bunch of favors, didn't end. Even while she was under official FBI investigation that nobody else knew about until very recently, didn't end. But the moment that she gets out of power is when the Clinton Foundation comes to a screeching halt, or at least the Global Initiative came to a screeching halt. What a surprise. But we talked about the Clinton Global Initiative. We talked about the IG report revelation. We talked about all the connections that James Comey had to Hillary Clinton. All the connections that Andrew McCabe had to Hillary Clinton. All of these things that we knew would come back. And you think that people aren't going to bring these revelations up when she starts running again? They're going to be like, weren't all these people like trying to screw over democracy just to see you in office? Come on, peeps. It's simple. The reason we keep calling out Hillary Clinton is because there are people out there that unfortunately don't get it. They don't get that if you keep rewarding negative behavior, then they'll keep coming back and doing the same stupid shit that they always do. The problem is the stupid shit that Hillary Clinton does literally ends up with like people missing, democracy destroyed, George Soros being celebrated, elections thrown. Like what more do you need to understand that this woman is a cancer to the fabric of our society? And instead of saying that was in the past, how about acknowledging that the past happened first? That's why we keep bringing it up, because you all have refused to acknowledge it. I don't think that we didn't say, oh, we need to move on. But I mean, to be totally honest with you, I can multitask. I can worry about getting these GOP fascists out of power and also call the Democratic Party and say, okay, we are worried about getting the GOP fascists out of power. We're worried about getting the GOP fascists out of power. You're correct, but that doesn't mean that we're in a rush to put the Democratic fascists in power. That's not what that means. That means I don't like the GOP and I don't like the Democrats. I like individuals. I like policies. I like ballot initiatives. I am even a pragmatist, but I am not a pragmatist to the point of sacrificing my morals and values. So just because you paint Donald Trump and the GOP, first of all, oh, by the way, it's not like they focus on all the things that the GOP actually does that really is hurting us, not only in this country, but across the world. They don't call out that shit. They want to call out like the superficial, vain identity politics shit that isn't going to win them an election, because identity politics has literally never won the Democrats an election. I don't know where they got that idea from. Oh, because they're getting their playbook from fucking GOP. There's a reason the strategy works for the GOP, but it doesn't work for the Democrats. So Hillary Clinton said that after the midterms, she is going to think about her 2020 run. Like, what? I don't know what can we do, guys? What do we do? Everybody should just go to Twitter right now, tag her, and be like, walk off a cliff. And make sure there's no water at the bottom. Seriously, people. I'm like, it's just exhausting at this point. It is legitimately exhausting at this point. But oh, don't worry, it gets better. Because not only because once again, the Democrats, the reason they can't keep office is because they don't want to do anything for the people. And the reason that the GOP, if they do lose, if the reason they can't keep office is because when they finally do get power, they literally do nothing that they say they're going to do for the people. They're supposed to be for the little guy. 51 GOP senators just voted to cut $1.5 trillion from Medicare and Medicaid to give the super rich corporations tax cuts. But walk away. But it's the Democrats that are causing all the problems. Along strict party lines, the Republican-controlled Senate on Thursday night voted to pass a sweeping budget measure, one criticized as both despicable and horrific, providing massive giveaways to corporations and the super rich while eviscerating funding for social programs, healthcare, education, and affordable housing. Triana be fine. Oh, I like that name. Triana be fine. The plan is to wear us out with the BS. Yeah. Actually, you're right. That is exactly their plan. If they continue to wear us out, then eventually they believe that we'll just cave and go back to being little mindless robots. But I don't think that we are. I pretty much feel at this point we don't have the ability to go back to being mindless robots. Some of us would even prefer to go back into the Matrix. But we can't. So yeah. Quote unquote, another dark deed is done. The GOP passes an obscene budget to slash Medicare and Medicaid. By the way, that Medicaid, I know some of you think of that as poor people's medical care, but it's not just for poor people. That's for your kids. They cut the funding to the medical insurance that takes care of your kids' medical needs when you can't. That's your GOP. But walk away. Go ahead. Walk away. Walk right into the fucking Venus flytrap that is the GOP. That's your kids, your grandparents that are being harmed. And it's really interesting because I know that Trump is supposed to be draining this swamp. I'm looking and it's looking a little swampy over here. And I see a few swamp beasts. And I don't think that Trump called out them taking money away from your kids and your grandparents' medical care. Did he say anything about that? Because they took money away from them and they gave it to corporations who are also a part of this swamp that he's supposed to be draining. And I don't see where he said, the article hasn't said anything about it. Did I miss it? Did I miss that? Hold on. Where is Teddy Cruz at? Oh, Ted Cruz voted for this. And didn't he, Mr. Swamp Drainer himself, just endorsed Ted Cruz? In fact, he went out campaigning for Ted Cruz. So the man who's supposed to be draining the swamp endorse a man who is literally taking the money away from the health care of your children and your grandparents to give to these wealthy motherfuckers who are going to in turn do what? Give it back to you all? No, they're going to take that money and stash it away in the Cayman Islands and stash it away and take it to Switzerland. It's crazy because at first I was like, Trump actually did the right thing by at least taking away the tax penalty for Obamacare, because that was killing people who couldn't afford Obamacare. So instead of dealing with Obamacare in a substantive way, he decided, you know what? I'm just going to take money away from your kids. I'm going to take money away from your grandparents. I'm going to let them figure it out. But I'm not going to take that money and reinvest it into the people of the country. I'm going to take it from this side of the swamp and give it to this side of the swamp. Because make America great again. What the hell? This reminds me of like the Gilded Ages of the late 1800s. We are having our money stolen from us right in front of our eyes. And there are people who somehow still believe that Donald Trump is on our side. They believe in what is called the Hegelian dialectic. If you critique the Democratic Party, if you dislike Hillary Clinton, then by definition you must hate, or excuse me, that by definition you must love Donald Trump and go to the GOP or the Republican Party. That's what it must mean, right? Why are you mad? Because the Democrats rig elections. Republicans just purged 500,000 voters. Are you mad at the Republicans like you're mad at the Democrats? Well, no, it's different. Why? Because you formed your little cult of friends where you've gotten popular from sucking Trump's dick for the last 2 years. This would have been the last straw for me. Now, I'm a different person. I have a huge heart. When the vulnerable can't defend themselves, I don't give a damn if your name is Trump, Hillary Clinton, or Bernie Sanders, for that matter. People always come before party. People always come before the politician. But you all are so busy hero worshiping that this GOP just took trillions from your kids and your grandparents' health care, and you're still screaming MAGA when Trump signed off on the shit. He was proud of it. He called this an achievement. Took a total of 3.8 trillion. 3.8 trillion from your pockets after he promised that these cuts, remember, he promised that they're going to be for the little guy. Oh, but no. He meant the little guy only if you make $1 million a year, that's a little guy to Donald Trump. You're screwed. Ask people who got their tax returns back how much money they got back. Some people ended up owing money where they have always gotten thousands of dollars back. How can you possibly think that this GOP is actually better than the Democratic Party instead of seeing the GOP and the Democratic Party for what they are? They are one party, hoping that you will buy into this idea that one is somehow better than the other. They're counting on it. Because for all those people who were so upset that the Democratic Party screwed them and took their vote away, and then ran to the Republican Party despite the Republican Party taking the votes away of those people. Why? Because they don't look like you? You don't care? Because it wasn't your vote? You don't care? So because it didn't happen to you, it doesn't matter. But when it happened to you, oh my God, let me run away from the Democrats and run into the fucking Republican Party. Let me start screaming Donald Trump's name from the fucking rooftops. This is ridiculous. I can't deal. I can't deal with the hypocrisy. That's what I'm having a struggle to deal with. I'm like, how could you think that these people are on your team? How could you think that almost any of these politicians are on your team? I want to move on to something that Elizabeth Lee Voss of Disobedient Media wrote. And this was written in December 4th, 2017. But it actually is discussing something that's relevant today, because I'm sure you all have known, or if you don't, you are about to know about the Catholic priest who got caught in Pennsylvania. And it turned out that they may have been communicating with the Catholic Church. In other words, the Pope knew about what was going on and didn't do anything about it. Allegations of sex abuse that began with Harvey Weinstein on the West Coast have incrementally shifted towards facets of the political, economic, and media spheres of the U.S. Eastern Seaboard. A surge in public willingness to come to terms with the stark reality of abuse perpetrated by members of establishment. It suggests that it is time to re-examine the testimony of survivors that have previously come forward with allegations. Disobedient Media spoke with Greg Buccaroni, a survivor of sex trafficking, who described his experiences in an alleged child sex ring in the late 1970s and early 1980s that primarily targeted troubled young boys on the East Coast. The network was said to be comprised of known human traffickers, abusers, and producers of child pornography with ties to the organized crime who openly associate with prominent political figures, including some who have been accused of indiscretions in the past. Now, while Buccaroni, has been attacked, not uplifted, not protected, but attacked by certain media outlets for his statements in 2012, Disobedient Media's investigation into his claims found them highly credible. Bucarini's assertions are corroborated by media reports, emails, and other things published by none other than WikiLeaks, which to this day have a 100% accurate track record. FBI documentation of mafia activity and testimony from a congressional committee obtained from the Freedom of Information Act request. Now, I just want to go ahead and go to this part because it's the part that gets it gets real, because it pisses me off when people try to believe or perpetuate this idea that, oh my gosh, politicians and elites, pedophiles, gasp. I can't believe it. That's never happened in history, except for in all of history, like literally all of history. This has been the norm. So, as Bucarini told Disobedient Media that he himself had been used as a child prostitute by infamous alleged pedophile Eddie Savitz, Bucaroni alleges that Savitz operated in conjunction with philanthropist Sam Rappaport, abusing a large number of troubled boys who were easily accessible through the South Philadelphia's Boy Club. They were using an establishment meant to take young boys off the street to traffic them. What? People. In the wake of abuse allegations leveled at Sandusky, Reuters described the coach's use of charity he founded to procure specifically at-risk children, stating, "Oh, sweet baby Jesus. Listen, people. Listen. This is frustrating for me to deal with, because as somebody who investigated in depth Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, have seen people disappear from digging too deep into the Clinton Foundation, all the people who have a high profile, who suicide themselves every time they start digging too deeply into sex trafficking of children. I want you to do something for me real quick. I'm going to reread that part where they describe the charity and at-risk children. In the wake of abuse allegations leveled at Sandusky, Reuters described, now this isn't a literal interpretation, so I want to clarify that, but I want you to just replace these words and see if they seem to fit very similar to what we've seen in the past. Reuters described the Secretary of State's use of a charity founded to procure specifically at-risk children in Haiti, stating the second mile, quote unquote, the Clinton Foundation is a charity for disadvantaged countries that prosecutors say were being used to find child sex trafficking and human trafficking victims. Now, does that sound so unbelievable? Because the way that the media portrayed sex trafficking, as far as politicians are concerned, they made it laughable. I don't know if you all recall. Remember when Ben Swann covered Comet Pizza in DC? I don't know if you all remember that. But what he said wasn't found to be inaccurate. In fact, Ben Swann, and I strongly urge you to go look at that report. Ben Swann actually, he was so accurate that he got taken off of network television. Now, granted, he did eventually bounce back with some of the best reporting that you could possibly find, as he always does. But these revelations, we found out a coach had started a charity to traffic children. And the idea that our politicians would do the same is so unfathomable, despite all the proof and all the people who disappear when they're about to reveal the truth. I'm going to post this article in the description, and I strongly suggest that you all read it. Like I said, that particular article was in 2017, but this is a revelation that kind of came about because of the recent allegations, or I should say revelations, against the Catholic Church. Remember how crazy it was that the Catholic Church was involved, that people thought the Catholic Church was involved with sex trafficking, and look what happened. We got to protect our most innocent people. We do. If we can't protect our most innocent, then our most vulnerable. Now, with that being said, I want to wrap up by telling you all that we have a duty to not only tell the truth, but also to be honest with ourselves. And I truly believe that the second part, the latter, is more difficult and is what's causing a lot of the friction and division within all of the movements for truth and for progress. I think a lot of our goals are the same. I really do. Our approaches may be different, but our goals are for the most part the same. Now, if you can't, like I said, there's two sides to this coin. There's the Hillary Clinton side, there's the Donald Trump side, but it's the same side. That's what's been proven thus far. Very few variances. Donald Trump still, in my opinion, probably better option. I won't say he's better, but he's a better option because what he's done, we can fix. Hillary Clinton, that would have been a no-go. There would be no peace with Korea if Hillary Clinton was in power. Everything would have been escalated to the umpteenth degree. And I'm honest enough with myself to admit that. If you can still talk shit about the Democratic Party while ignoring the blatant election fraud on behalf of the Republican Party, then you're not being honest with yourself. If you can just totally ignore that. If you can say walk away because of the corruption and the lies and the media manipulation of the Democratic Party, and you cannot at the same time admit that the Republican Party has been absolutely guilty of the same thing, then you are a victim of the duopoly and you are not being honest with yourself. If you somehow think that Andrew Gillum or Gavin Newsom of California is going to be better, like diametrically better than Johnny Cox or Mike DeSantis, then you don't know how this game is played. Because when you take money from the same people, Kamala Harris was a Democratic Attorney General. She threw black people in prison like it was a sport and bailed out banks like she was getting paid for it because she was. If we're going to start changing this country and eventually changing the world, then we have to start looking within ourselves and being honest. Admit it. You were pissed off and you were heartbroken by the GOP, or excuse me, by the Democratic Party, and by Bernie Sanders not fighting for you the way you liked him to in the beginning. And so you ran into the arms of the winning team. But that team is not going to make the world better for you or your kids. You are letting these parties divide us. At the same time, they're both cheating us. At the same time, they're both laughing in our faces because you all are falling for it. Not all of you, but a lot of you. Some of you are okay with the bigotry. Some of you are okay with the sexism. But that's few and far between. I believe that. I truly believe that there aren't that many people. There is a world outside of Facebook. There's a world outside of Facebook. Now, with that being said, there are still too many. But if we are going to fix these problems, we have to first be willing to look within ourselves and be honest about why you are supporting or not supporting somebody. Why you're relegating your decisions to A versus B instead of figuring out why C is not an option. Because if we don't figure out a way to unite against this oligarchy, against the establishment now, none of us have a lot of time left on this planet. At least not a time that anyone will want to spend anyway. So with that being said, people, thank you all so much for tuning in. Make sure you donate to our Patreon. Sign up for Roku. If you have not subscribed to us there, we are the first independent news network on Roku, and we would love to have you tune in. Like I said, we will be on Roku posting every day. Hopefully, I'll post the rest of the episodes from this weekend tonight. If you were looking for the Monday morning show, the rest of the episodes from this weekend will be on there this evening. Okay? So with that being said, always remember, people, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.